A week ago, Meredith Foster, my stepmother, was locked in her room. Too ashamed to face the fallout of her online confessions, I had uncovered her secret Reddit diary, filled with venom about me, Zoe, and Jordan. Her words were cruel, mocking Zoe's deafness. I confronted her, she laughed. I told Dada he moved out. Now, Meredith's alone, surrounded by the silence she wished on us. Back when I thought Meredith cared, I tried so hard to include her. I taught her simple signs for Zoe, cooked dinner with her, and even gave her a silver locket. She wore it every day, or so I believed. We laughed together once, it felt real. That locket meant something to me, proof of family. I didn't know she wrote online that it was cheap junk from a clingy stepkid. That memory now feels like betrayal. Meredith always acted sweet when Dad was home. She'd pack Zoe's lunch, compliment my grades, hug Jordan. But as soon as he left, she'd ignore Zoe's signs, scoff at my questions, and complain loudly on the phone about being trapped with his kids. I thought I was imagining it. Jordan told me to stop being sensitive. I wanted to believe he was right. Now I know I wasn't crazy, just conditioned to excuse cruelty in a smile. It started when I borrowed her laptop to print Zoe's school project. I wasn't snooping, but the browser opened to Reddit. Her profile was there, mocking us. Zoe signs like a broken puppet. Jordan is dead weight. I fake smiles daily. I froze, my heart pounded. I saved screenshots, sick with disbelief. That night, I showed Marissa our real mom. She slammed her mug down. We confront this together, she said. My stomach twisted. Could this really be true? Marissa and I read every post out loud, each one more vile than the last. They're not my kids, just baggage. I felt my throat tighten. Jordan walked in. Hearing the last line, he stared at the screen silent, then said, she always ignored Zoe. It all clicked for him too. Marissa suggested we tell Dad, but I hesitated. What if he didn't believe us? Meredith was a master actress. Her lies were stitched into smiles. We decided to record a video writing the worst posts, each of us taking turns. Zoe watched quietly. Then she typed on her iPad, is that what she thinks of me? I hugged her hard as she cried, soundless. That video wasn't just for Dad, it was for Zoe, proof that we saw her pain. That night, I left the locket on Meredith's nightstand with a note, this is the last thing you'll get from me. When I told Meredith I'd seen everything, her face didn't fall, it twisted. That was private. You invaded my space, she hissed. No apology, no shame, just fury. I said, you humiliated my sister online, that's not private, she sneered. Deaf kids don't even know what's said about them. My hand shook. Jordan stood behind me, glaring. Meredith tried to push past us. Go ahead, I said. Try explaining this to Dad. Her eyes finally flickered. Dad came home late. Meredith had dinner ready. Candles lit, her usual performance. I waited until he sat down, then handed him the screenshots and the video. What is this? He asked. Truth, I said. He read in silence, his fork clinking uselessly. Then he stood. You wrote these things? Meredith's voice cracked, fake tears pooling. I was venting, but the damage was raw and clear. For once, Dad looked past the act and saw the wreckage. That night, everything exploded. Dad asked Meredith to explain each post. She twisted words, blamed us, said we were too sensitive. Zoe sat silently, tears rolling as she signed. Why does she hate me? I translated. Dad's face crumpled. I trusted you, he said. Meredith snapped. They're not mine. The room went dead quiet. Jordan slammed his hand on the table. We're still kids, and you're still cruel. Dad grabbed his coat. I need air, he muttered. The next morning, Dad packed a bags. Meredith begged, cried, promised therapy. He just shook his head. You humiliated my children. That doesn't get fixed with tears. He kissed Zoe's forehead. You're perfect, she smiled faintly. He hugged Jordan and nodded at me. Thank you for the truth. Meredith followed him outside, wailing. The door shut behind him like a final sentence. We stood together in the living room, exhausted, shaking, but finally heard. The silence wasn't cruel anymore. Meredith didn't stop. A week later, she made a new Reddit account, posting twisted versions of our story, calling me a liar, Jordan violent, and Zoe slow. She made herself the victim. I screenshot everything. Zoe wrote I love you on her iPad, flashing it toward me. That sign became our pact, we'd protect each other. Marissa contacted a lawyer. Defamation, she said. Jordan helped file reports. Meredith's lies became her downfall. Our pain had become undeniable evidence. We thought we were done, but then Zoe found a new post, Meredith mocking her drawings. It had just been uploaded. Dad had been checking in, but still hadn't cut ties. She's still doing this, I told him. He didn't answer for hours. Then he sent a photo, the locket, broken in half, sitting on her porch. No words, just closure. That moment cracked something open. We weren't imagining the evil, he saw it now. Finally, Jordan admitted something that floored me. She always flinched when Zoe tried to hug her, he said, like she was disgusted. I had never noticed, or maybe I didn't want to. Zoe sat on the couch, sketching quietly, headphones in. I watched her draw a hand signing love. That became our new symbol. Meredith never even tried to learn it. That single motion, so simple, was something she refused, and that told us everything about who she was. A friend of mine from school messaged me, is this your stepmom? Attached was a screenshot from a parenting forum. Meredith was pretending to be a stepmother of special needs kids, begging for sympathy. They drain me, she wrote. I never wanted them. My stomach turned. I showed Dad. His jaw clenched. That's enough, he said. He called the admin, reported the posts. Days later, the account was banned. Meredith's echo chamber was collapsing around her. We got a call from the school. Someone anonymously emailed screenshots of Meredith's posts to Zoe's teachers. The school counselor called Marissa in, concerned, but something amazing happened. Zoe's class had started learning basic ASL. Her classmates had rallied around her. "You're brave," her teacher told me, "and your sister's incredible." I cried in the hallway. Meredith wanted Zoe to feel invisible. Instead, she became seen more than ever. Her hate accidentally gave Zoe community support. Zoe's artwork was chosen for a district exhibit. One of her drawings, two hands forming the sign for family, was the centerpiece. I told her, "You turned pain into beauty." She smiled, touched my shoulder. We didn't need to speak. That piece went viral on local social media. People reached out, asking how to support kids like Zoe. Meredith had tried to erase her. Instead, Zoe became a symbol of strength. Her silence spoke louder than hate. One night, Jordan knocked on my door. "She tried to message me," he said. "Meredith has sent a long text, apologies, excuses, blaming her mental state." He didn't reply. Instead, he blocked her and deleted the message. "I don't need her explanations," he said. That felt like real healing. We weren't clinging to what-ifs anymore. We had each other. Meredith's words held no power now. Her voice, once loud in our lives, was finally irrelevant. Marissa filed for custody modifications. She wanted full primary custody of Zoe and Jordan. During the hearing, Meredith tried to object, citing emotional stress, but the judge had seen the Reddit evidence. "These children deserve stability," she said. Meredith's face went pale. She lost all rights except supervised visits. We left the courthouse holding hands. It wasn't just a legal win, it was emotional justice. Meredith could no longer pretend. Her mask had been stripped for good. After the custody ruling, Meredith posted a final thread online, anonymous, bitter, full of self-pity. But this time, people responded differently. Dozens of comments called her out. "This isn't venting, this is abuse. You need help, not a platform." She deleted the account within hours. Her echo chamber was gone. No more anonymous sympathy, just consequences. The internet had once been her weapon. Now it turned on her, and all she could do was disappear into silence. Marissa framed Zoe's viral artwork and hung it in our living room. Below it, she placed the silver locket I'd once given Meredith, now cracked and empty. "This is what truth looks like," she said. It was more than decor. It was a declaration. We didn't just survive Meredith's cruelty, we transformed it. From mockery to celebration, from silence to community. That wall told a story: love over noise, family over fear, and we chose to remember it all. One morning, Zoe signed, "Can we visit, Dad?" It was her first time asking. We drove over, unsure of what we'd find. Meredith wasn't there. Dad welcomed us in, nervous. He had taken down all her photos. "I'm sorry it took so long," he said. Zoe hugged him tight. No words, just connection. I realized we weren't rebuilding what was lost, we were building something new. Without Meredith's shadow, our real family was finally starting to breathe. A teacher invited me to speak at a school event, how to spot emotional abuse at home. I hesitated, then agreed. I told our story carefully, changing names, protecting Zoe. Afterward, two girls approached me, eyes wide. "That's my life," one whispered. I handed her a flyer for resources. That night, I cried not for pain but because we'd made it out. Our story wasn't just survival anymore, it was a light. Meredith's damage didn't win. We were louder. Dad started therapy, he told me during a quiet breakfast. "I need to understand how I let it get that far." He said. I nodded, heart tight. Healing wasn't just for us, it was for him too. Later, he wrote Zoe a note in shaky ASL ACU. "I'm learning." She beamed. One sentence, 1,000 repairs. Meredith used silence as punishment. We were using it now for listening. For love. That difference meant everything. We visited the community center for a deaf culture night. Zoe was in her element, laughing, signing fast, surrounded by kids who understood her without effort. I watched her from across the room. Jordan nudged me. Smiling. "She's finally herself," he said. Meredith had tried to dim her, but this was Zoe shining. The locket, the posts, the pain, they were shadows now. Here, Zoe wasn't someone to fix, she was someone to follow. Our star. A stranger messaged me online. "You don't know me, but your sister's art changed my view of parenting. I learned ASL because of her." I showed the message to Zoe. She blushed, covering her face, but I saw her smile. Her impact had rippled beyond our house, beyond Meredith's reach. I replied, "Thank you, she's amazing." It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about reclaiming space, voice and love. Meredith shrank, Zoe soared. That was justice. Meredith emailed Dad one final time. He showed us, "I'm moving, starting over." There was no apology, just absence. It felt anticlimactic, almost empty. But maybe that's what healing looks like. No dramatic closure, just space where pain used to live. We deleted the email together. Jordan said, "She's finally gone." It was true, she hadn't changed, but we had, and that difference was louder than any apology she never gave. We didn't need her to vanish just to matter less. Our last act was simple. We turned her old room into a studio for Zoe. We painted the walls soft blue, filled it with art supplies, light music she loved. She stood in the center, eyes wide, hands clasped. "Mine," she signed. I nodded. That space once held silence, cruelty, tension. Now it breathed creativity, laughter, freedom. We didn't just remove Meredith, we replaced her with color, with voice. That transformation, it was the loudest story we told. Looking back, I sometimes wonder how I didn't see it sooner. The fakiness in Meredith's hugs, the way she rolled her eyes at Zoe, the tension in Jordan's shoulders. But then I remember I was trying to believe in family. That's not weakness, that's hope. Now, I grip the broken locket and smile. It used to represent connection. Now it reminds me of what we escaped, what we rebuilt. We weren't broken, we were bending toward each other always. Sometimes I still hear her voice, sharp and mocking, echoing in memories, but it fades faster now, drowned out by Zoe's laughter. Jordan's music, Dad's clumsy asshole. We filled our home with new sound, new light. I journal every night now, not to vent, but to track the love we grow daily. Meredith taught me what silence can do, but my family, we taught each other what voice feels like through hands. Through truth, through fierce chosen connection. Meredith's consequence wasn't a courtroom sentence, it was erasure. No one believed her posts anymore. The parenting forums banned her, former friends ghosted her, even her sister stopped answering calls. She was alone, yelling into empty spaces. Meanwhile, our family reclaimed that space. Zoe's art exhibit expanded. Now featured in a statewide show, Jordan got accepted into his dream college. I started writing essays on sibling advocacy. Meredith's punishment wasn't prison, it was watching us bloom without her shadow. Now Sunday dinners are at Mom's place. Zoe sets the table, Jordan plays music, Dad brings dessert. We talk in a mix of voices and signs. Everyone's learning, no one's perfect, but we show up. We show love. The locket sits in a glass box beside Zoe's drawing. It reminds us where we came from and why we'll never go back. Meredith once tried to write our story for us. Now we hold the pen, and we're loud.